The grand hall of Zifor-7 was silent. Hundreds of alien figures, tall and covered in shimmering silver skin, stood in a perfect circle around a large golden table. Their glowing blue eyes locked onto the human standing in the middle, Captain Alex Carter. He could feel their piercing stares, the tension in the air so thick it was almost suffocating. He had been in dangerous negotiations before, but this was different. The Sci-Fians were not just another alien race. They were one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and they followed strict traditions. One mistake could mean disaster. Alex took a deep breath. He had been sent here as a diplomat, representing Earth. The mission was simple: form a peaceful alliance, but something about this meeting felt off. The Sci-Fian leader, Varoth, sat at the head of the table, watching him closely. His silver skin shimmered under the hall's glowing blue lights. His face showed no emotion, but his presence was powerful. A deep, robotic voice echoed through the chamber. "State your request, human." Alex stepped forward carefully. "We come in peace. Earth wishes to establish trade and knowledge exchange with Zifor-7. Silence. The Sci-Fians did not react. Their glowing eyes flickered as if analyzing every movement, every word. Finally, Varoth spoke. "Peace? Do you understand our laws, human?" Alex hesitated. "Yes, I have studied them." Varoth leaned forward slightly. "Then you should know. Touching a Sci-Fian without permission is a crime punishable by binding." Alex nodded. His superiors had briefed him. The Sci-Fians had a strange law. Any physical contact between species was strictly forbidden. It was a sacred rule, one that must never be broken. "I understand," Alex said firmly. Varoth tilted his head, then slowly reached for a small silver cube on the table. As he lifted it, the symbols on its surface began to glow. The other Sci-Fians stepped back slightly. "This is it," Alex thought. "The moment of agreement." Varoth held the cube out toward him. Alex reached for it carefully, making sure not to rush. But at that exact moment, a bright red light flashed in the chamber. A sharp alarm sound filled the air. Alex instinctively turned his head toward the source of the noise. A mechanical drone had flown into the room, carrying a small flickering hologram. It was a transmission from the human ship. Distracted by the sudden interruption, Alex reached for the cube without thinking, and his fingers brushed against Varoth's hand. The hall froze. For a full second, no one moved. The moment stretched in slow motion. Alex's mind screamed at him to pull back, but it was too late. A deep boom shook the chamber. The glowing symbols on the walls flared into bright golden light. A low, vibrating hum filled the room, making the air feel electric. The Sci-Fians gasped in horror. Varoth's eyes widened slightly, his skin flickering between silver and deep blue. He slowly pulled his hand back, staring at Alex with an unreadable expression. A second later, a thunderous voice echoed through the chamber. It was the Sci-Fian judgment system, an AI that enforced the laws of their people. Law 73 Ohms violation, DTHCTE. Alex's stomach dropped. "Oh no. Human HAA's to you CHEDAXYPHARN. Without TPERMISS1. The walls shimmered, and a bright golden seal appeared on the floor beneath Alex. Strange energy curled around his feet, wrapping around his body like invisible chains. The voice spoke again. "By law, the human is no bound for life." The chamber erupted in whispers. Some Sci-Fians looked shocked, others angry. Alex could hear murmurs. "Impossible. A human. Bound. The law is clear. He must obey it." Alex's heart pounded. What does this mean? Bound for life. Two Sci-Fian guards stepped forward, their glowing staffs crackling with energy. Varoth stood, his towering figure casting a long shadow over Alex. His voice was calm but firm. "The law has spoken." Alex looked up at him, his mind racing. This was a mistake. It wasn't intentional. There had to be a way out. Wait, he tried to protest, but Varoth raised a hand, silencing him. Your fate is sealed, human, Varoth said softly. From this moment on, you belong to me. The guards grabbed Alex by his arms. He struggled, but the strange energy flowing through him made it impossible to resist. His mission was over. His life would never be the same. Cliffhanger. As the guards dragged Alex away, the golden symbols on the floor pulsed one last time. Varoth watched him with an unreadable expression. Then, just before Alex was taken through the grand doors, he heard a whisper in his mind. You are not the first, but you may be the last. Alex's mind raced as the guards dragged him through the glowing corridors of the Sci-Fi palace. The energy coursing through his body made it impossible to resist, as if unseen hands were gripping his very soul. He had no idea what bound for life truly meant, but he knew one thing. His freedom was gone. The hallways shimmered with golden light, their walls covered in strange, pulsing symbols. Every Sci-Fi they passed turned to stare at him. Some whispered in their melodic, humming language. Others simply watched in silence, their glowing blue eyes filled with unreadable emotions. He caught bits and pieces of their murmurs. A human, bound to the High Chancellor. It has never happened before. A punishment or a destiny. The doors at the end of the corridor slid open, revealing a massive chamber. Unlike the Grand Hall, this room was dimly lit, the air thick with a strange, almost electric energy. The guards shoved Alex forward, and the golden restraints around his body suddenly vanished. He stumbled but caught himself, breathing heavily. Varoth stood in the center of the room, his silver skin shifting under the faint light. He was no longer surrounded by his council. It was just him and Alex now. For a long moment, there was silence. Then Varoth spoke. Do you understand what you have done, human? Alex clenched his fists. It was an accident. Varoth's eyes flickered. The law does not care for accidents. A deep hum filled the air as the golden symbols on the floor glowed brighter. Alex felt a strange pressure around his wrist and looked down. A thin, glowing band had appeared there, pulsing in sync with Varoth's own wristband. A cold chill ran down Alex's spine. What is this? He asked, his voice quieter now. Varoth took a slow step forward. It is the bond. From this moment on, our fates are intertwined. Where I go, you go. When I call, you must answer. If I fall, you will fall with me. Alex's breath caught in his throat. This isn't just servitude. This is something much deeper. What if I refuse? He asked, testing the limits. Varoth tilted his head slightly. Then you will die. The words were spoken without malice, just a simple statement of fact. The glowing band on Alex's wrist pulsed again, sending a sharp jolt of pain through his arm. He gritted his teeth, refusing to show weakness, but the message was clear. This was no simple punishment. This was ownership. Alex forced himself to meet Varoth's gaze. What do you want from me? Varoth studied him for a moment before turning away. He walked toward a tall, crystalline structure at the back of the chamber, its surface shimmering with thousands of shifting lights. Without looking back, he spoke again. You are bound to me, human, but I did not choose this. Alex frowned. So you don't want this either. Varoth was silent for a moment. Then softly, he said, No. A strange tension filled the air. Alex had expected the Sci-Fi leader to revel in his power over him. But Varoth's voice held something else. Regret. Frustration. Alex stepped closer. Then let me go. Varoth finally turned back, and for the first time, Alex saw something other than cold authority in his expression. There was a flicker of something deeper, something almost human. I cannot. Alex's frustration boiled over. Why not? If you're the leader here, just undo it. Break the bond. Varoth sighed, lifting his wrist slightly. The golden band on his arm pulsed in sync with Alex. It is not my law. It is the will of the elders. Once the bond is formed, it cannot be broken. Not by force. Not by choice. Only by— He hesitated. Only by destiny. Alex felt like the ground was slipping beneath him. Destiny. Varoth's voice was quiet now. Either we fulfill the purpose of this bond, or it will consume us both. A heavy silence followed his words. Alex's throat felt dry. What does that mean? Varoth's gaze darkened. I do not know. The air in the room seemed to thicken. Alex didn't believe in fate, in mystical forces or ancient prophecies. He was a soldier, a diplomat, a man of logic. But this was beyond anything he had ever faced. Finally, he exhaled sharply. Fine. Then tell me this. What happens now? Varoth's eyes flickered again, and for the first time since the bond was formed, he gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. Now, he repeated, now, we survive. At that moment, the chamber's lights dimmed, and a deep, rumbling sound filled the air. The walls trembled, and a sharp voice echoed through the palace's communication system. Warning. Unidentified vessels, DETCTED in orbit. Hostile, NTENT probability. Alex's heart skipped a beat. An attack. Varoth turned toward the towering crystal structure, his silver skin glowing faintly. His expression hardened. It seems the universe has already decided our first trial. Human. Alex took a deep breath, his muscles tensing. Whatever this bond meant, whatever fate had in store for him, one thing was clear. He wasn't getting out of this anytime soon. The entire palace trembled as alarms blared through the halls. A deep, vibrating hum filled the air, a sound that made Alex's skin crawl. Whatever was happening, it wasn't good. Varoth stood completely still, eyes glowing faintly as he listened to the distant echoes of the alarm. Then, with a slow breath, he turned to Alex. You will follow me. Do not stray. Alex barely had time to react before Varoth was moving, his long strides carrying him toward a hidden panel in the wall. He pressed his palm against it, and the surface shimmered before sliding open, revealing a passageway lined with glowing blue energy streams. Alex hesitated for only a second before stepping in after him. The moment he crossed the threshold, the door sealed behind them with a soft hiss. Where are we going? Alex demanded. Varoth didn't slow down. To the war room. If we are under attack, I must see who dares threaten the Typharian capital. Alex swallowed hard, his mind racing. He was still reeling from the reality of his bond with Varoth, but now that seemed like the least of his problems. As they moved deeper into the palace's hidden corridors, Alex's instincts kicked in. He had been a soldier once, had fought in wars on distant worlds. The sounds of an impending battle were all too familiar. Is this normal? Alex asked, scanning the glowing walls. Do you get attacked often? Varoth glanced at him, his silver skin dimming slightly. No one dares challenge the Cypherian Empire. Then who the hell is attacking you? Varoth remained silent, but his expression hardened. Alex didn't like that. Moments later, they reached another sealed door. Varoth pressed his wristband against a scanner, and the doors slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside was a massive chamber, its walls lined with floating screens projecting images of the planet's orbit. Several Cypherian officials were already present, speaking in hushed, hurried tones. The moment Varoth entered, the entire room fell silent. A Cypherian general turned toward him. High Chancellor, we have a situation. Varoth stepped forward. Report. The general waved his hand, and one of the screens expanded, revealing a fleet of massive ships hovering just beyond the planet's defensive perimeter. Alex's stomach tightened at the sight of them. Sleek, black vessels with jagged edges, no insignia, no markings. Pirates, raiders, or worse. Voroth's expression darkened. Who are they? The general's jaw tensed. Unknown. They refuse communication, but they are charging weapons. Alex inhaled sharply. This was bad. Very bad. Can your defenses hold them off? He asked. The general barely spared him a glance before looking back at Voroth. Voroth studied the ships on the screen. Then, slowly, he turned toward Alex. You have fought battles before, have you not? Alex's eyes narrowed. Yeah. So? Voroth's gaze didn't waver. Then you will fight with us now. Alex stiffened. Excuse me. Voroth lifted his wrist, and the golden band on Alex's wrist pulsed in response. You are bound to me, human. Our survival is linked. If I fall, so do you. Alex exhaled sharply. So that's it. I just got here, and now I'm being dragged into an intergalactic war. Voroth's lips pressed into a thin line. If you wish to live, you will fight. Alex looked back at the screens. The enemy fleet was advancing, their ships moving into attack formation. He clenched his jaw. He didn't have a choice. Not anymore. With a deep breath, he turned back to Voroth and nodded. Fine. Tell me what I need to do. The war room fell into a tense silence. The enemy ships loomed on the screens, their dark hulls absorbing the light of the system's twin suns. They were close now. Too close. Alex could feel the weight of 100 alien eyes on him. Sci-Fians were an empire of warriors, bred for battle, yet they were all staring at him, a human, an outsider. Voroth turned to face him, his silver gaze unreadable. You understand combat. You understand war. If you have any suggestions, now is the time. Alex exhaled slowly. He had been a soldier once, a fighter. He had led teams into impossible battles, survived ambushes on planets where the air was poison. He had fought and lost more times than he wanted to remember. But this was a whole new level. Still, he wasn't about to stand there like a useless extra in his own survival story. He stepped forward, eyes locked on the approaching enemy ships. Tell me about your defenses. One of the Sci-Fian tacticians, an older warrior with deep violet markings on his silver skin, spoke up. The orbital shields are active, but their weapons are designed to disrupt energy barriers. They will not hold indefinitely. Alex frowned. Ground defenses. Another Sci-Fian, a female with sharp, predatory eyes, tapped a holographic display. We have planetary turrets, but their range is limited. If they breach the atmosphere, we will not be able to stop them from landing troops. Alex studied the screen, taking in the formations, the angles, the enemy's approach vector. Something wasn't adding up. They're not acting like pirates, he muttered. Voroth's gaze sharpened. Explain. Alex motioned to the screen. Pirates raid, pillage, then run. They don't launch full-scale invasions. They don't try to disable shields unless they plan to stay. A ripple of unease passed through the Sci-Fian officers. Voroth's fingers curled slightly, the only outward sign of his tension. Then what do you believe they are? Alex's jaw tightened. Occupiers. The word sent a shockwave through the room. Sci-Fians were conquerors, not the conquered. The idea that someone, anyone, would dare invade their homeworld was unthinkable. But the proof was right there, floating in the void. Voroth turned back to the display. His expression was unreadable, but Alex could feel the weight of his thoughts. Finally, the High Chancellor spoke. Then we will ensure they do not set foot on our soil. The room moved into action instantly. Orders were shouted, commands relayed. The Sci-Fians were built for war, and it showed in the efficiency of their response. Alex turned to Voroth. What do you need me to do? Voroth studied him for a long moment. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he summoned a holographic projection of a sleek Sci-Fian fighter ship. You can pilot, can you not? Alex's breath hitched. It had been years since he'd flown anything, but piloting was like breathing. Once it was in your blood, You never forgot." He met Varoth's gaze and nodded. "Yeah, I can fly." Varoth's lips curled slightly, the closest thing to a smile Alex had seen from him. "Then follow me." They moved quickly through the palace's underground corridors, emerging into a vast hangar filled with rows of Sci-Fi warships. The moment they stepped in, mechanics and warriors alike snapped to attention. Varoth motioned toward a sleek black and silver vessel. "That is yours." Alex hesitated for only a second before striding toward the ship. The cockpit hissed open, and he climbed in, fingers running over unfamiliar controls. A deep voice crackled through the comms. "Do not crash. Sci-Fi ships do not take kindly to weak pilots." Alex smirked. "Then it's a good thing I'm not weak." With a steadying breath, he powered up the engines. The ship rumbled to life beneath him, thrusters humming. Across the hangar, Varoth's own fighter activated, glowing with an eerie blue light. A countdown echoed through the speakers. "Launch in 5, 4, 3, 2. The hangar bay doors peeled open, revealing the dark void of space beyond. 1. Alex gripped the controls, and then he was flying. The silence of space was deceptive. It seemed peaceful, endless, a vast ocean of darkness dotted with distant stars. But Alex knew better. He knew that within that silence, wars were fought, lives were lost, and empires crumbled. And right now, he was in the middle of one. The Sci-Fi fighter hummed beneath his fingers, a sleek predator built for speed and precision. The controls were alien, yet somehow intuitive, like the ship itself was learning him as much as he was learning it. Through the cockpit's transparent interface, he could see the enemy fleet closing in. Their ships were larger, heavier, built for endurance rather than agility. A traditional dogfight wouldn't end well. Varoth's voice crackled through the comms. "Do not engage recklessly, human. These are not the weak scavengers you are used to." Alex smirked, adjusting his grip on the controls. "I wasn't planning on being reckless. I was planning on winning." A low, amused sound came from the other end of the transmission, but Varoth didn't argue. Instead, his ship shot forward, weaving through the void with the deadly grace of a seasoned warrior. Alex followed, his instincts sharpening as the first wave of enemy ships broke formation, charging toward them. "Engaging hostiles," a Sci-Fi pilot announced. Lasers cut through space, streaks of red and blue dancing in the blackness. The first explosion lit up the battlefield, and then chaos erupted. Alex dodged an incoming blast, twisting the ship into a sharp roll before cutting back and lining up a shot. The targeting system locked on, and with a squeeze of the trigger, he sent a burst of plasma fire straight into the enemy vessel's exposed thrusters. The ship detonated instantly. "Not bad, human," Varoth said, his own ship taking down 2 enemies in rapid succession. "But let us see how you handle the second wave." As if on cue, the real battle began. From the shadows of a nearby asteroid belt, larger warships emerged. These weren't simple raiders. These were siege-class vessels, designed to take hits and keep coming. Alex's stomach tightened. "They were waiting for us." Varoth's voice was calm, unreadable. "They are learning. As are we." The Sci-Fi fleet adjusted their formation, shifting into a defensive pattern. But Alex could see it wasn't enough. The enemy was adapting. They had studied Sci-Fi tactics. They knew how to counter them, which meant it was time to do something unexpected. "Give me access to the fleet's comms," Alex said. There was a pause, then a sharp click. "You have it," Varoth replied. Alex took a breath and opened the channel. "Listen up. They know how you fight. That's why they're pushing you into a defensive stance. They want you to hold your ground until they overwhelm you. We need to break the pattern." A few pilots scoffed. "And what do you suggest, human?" One of them sneered. Alex grinned. "We stop fighting like warriors and start fighting like survivors." A new formation began to take shape, a strategy born from human wars. hit-and-run tactics, unpredictability, feints that led into ambushes. The Kypharians hesitated at first, but then the tide began to turn. One by one, the enemy ships fell, their calculated approach crumbling under the sheer chaos of human ingenuity. Varoth's ship pulled up beside Alex's, their cockpits nearly parallel. "You are full of surprises, human." Alex smirked. "Stick with me. There's more where that came from." But just as he said it, a deep, rumbling voice echoed through the comms, one that didn't belong to any Cypherian. "Impressive. I did not expect a human to be the reason our plans failed." A massive warship materialized from the darkness, larger than any they had faced before. It bore markings unlike the others, a crimson insignia that sent a shiver down Alex's spine. The Cypherian comms fell silent. Even Varoth didn't speak. Alex tightened his grip on the controls, heart pounding. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The massive warship loomed in the darkness of space, its crimson insignia glowing ominously against the void. Alex could feel the shift in the atmosphere, even through the comms, an unspoken tension that crawled beneath his skin. Whoever commanded that ship was no ordinary enemy. A deep, guttural voice echoed through the channels, its tone laced with amusement and warning. "You fight well for a species so young." Alex glanced at Varoth through the transparent cockpit interface. The Cypherian warrior's face was unreadable, but his silence spoke volumes. That wasn't fear, it was recognition. "Who are we dealing with?" Alex asked. Varoth hesitated before answering. "The Drakvorn, a warlord-class entity. Their kind does not simply invade. They conquer." Alex exhaled slowly. "And I'm guessing they don't take prisoners. Not the kind you would want to be." The enemy warship pulsed with energy, its weapons systems charging. Alex's fingers tightened around the controls. He knew exactly what was coming next. "Brace yourselves," he muttered. A beam of violet energy cut through space like a scythe, vaporizing debris in its path. The Cypherian fleet scattered, breaking formation just in time to avoid annihilation. But that was only the first shot. "They're going to push us into a corner," Alex realized, his mind racing. "They want us to retreat." Varoth's voice was grim, because retreating is exactly what they expect. Alex felt his stomach twist. Every instinct told him to run, to get as far away as possible from that ship and its monstrous firepower. But that was the human instinct. And right now, he had to think like something more. "We need to disable their main cannon," he said quickly. "Otherwise, we won't survive another shot." A Cypherian pilot cut into the comms. "You want us to attack that thing. It will tear us apart." Alex didn't blame him for doubting. The warship was easily 10 times the size of their fighters. But size wasn't everything. "They think we're predictable," he said. "They expect us to flee. So we do the opposite." Silence. Then Varoth's voice, calm and certain. "You heard him. Target the cannon's power source, and do not miss." The Cypherian fleet surged forward, a swarm of ships weaving through enemy fire. Alex maneuvered through the chaos, dodging plasma bursts and retaliating with precision shots. The warship responded in kind. It unleashed drone fighters, sleek machines designed for speed and lethality. Alex twisted his ship into a tight spiral, barely avoiding a direct hit. His comms buzzed with frantic reports, pilots dodging, some getting clipped, others vanishing in bright explosions. He gritted his teeth. Focus. Adapt. Survive. He spotted the weak point, the cannon's charging core, pulsing with raw energy. But it was heavily shielded, protected by layers of defensive plating. There was only one way through. "Cover me," Alex shouted. Before anyone could argue, he pushed his ship to full throttle. Laser fire streaked past him as he dove toward the warship's underbelly. A missile locked onto him, alarms blaring in his cockpit. Not today. He yanked the controls, cutting the thrusters at just the right moment. His ship flipped backward in zero gravity, the missile overshooting its target and slamming into the warship's hull instead. The explosion rocked the battlefield. "Direct hit," Varoth called. "Shields weakened. Finish it." Alex didn't hesitate. He locked onto the core, his finger hovering over the trigger. Then, just as he fired, a force unlike anything he had ever felt gripped his mind. It wasn't pain. It wasn't fear. It was something deeper. Something ancient. "You should not have come here, human." The voice wasn't over comms. It was inside his head. And as Alex's vision blurred, as darkness clawed at the edges of his mind, he realized this war was bigger than he had ever imagined. Alex's world twisted into a vortex of darkness and cold fire. He wasn't in his ship anymore, at least, not in the way he understood. The stars around him boiled into streaks of violet and black, and a crushing weight pressed against his mind, like unseen hands gripping his skull. The voice came again, deep, ancient. "You do not belong here." Alex gasped, struggling to pull himself back to reality. His hands clutched at the controls of his fighter, but he couldn't feel them. It was as if he existed in two places at once, his body in the cockpit, his mind trapped in some vast, unseen space. Through the haze, he saw Varoth's ship veering dangerously close to the enemy warship's cannon. The Typharian warrior was buying him time, engaging the enemy with brutal efficiency. "I have to move. I have to fire." But something held him. And then, he saw it. A presence, not just a mind, but a force. Something massive, beyond physical form, coiled within the heart of the Drakvorn warship. It wasn't a commander, or even a living being as he understood it. It was a will, a consciousness that had existed long before humanity had even discovered the stars. And it had just noticed him. Ah, a mortal bound by the law. The presence shifted. It wasn't speaking in words, not really. It was peeling through Alex's memories, unspooling his past like a thread. The moment he had touched Varoth, the binding that had taken place between them. An accident, the voice mused, its tone laced with something almost like amusement. And yet, the bond holds. How interesting. Alex's breath came in ragged gasps. He needed to break free. But how do you fight something that doesn't exist in the same plane as you? "You don't," the presence answered, as if reading his thoughts. "You listen." A cold tendril of energy wrapped around his consciousness. Images flashed before his eyes. Visions of battles fought across millennia. Civilizations wiped from existence. And then, a warning. A glimpse of Earth, burning. "This is what awaits your kind," the presence said. "You cannot stop what is coming." Rage flared in Alex's chest. He forced himself to focus, to push against the crushing weight. "You're wrong," he growled. "We're not just going to roll over and die." Laughter. A hollow, ancient sound. "We shall see." And just like that, Alex was back. His fingers were on the controls. His ship was still locked onto the cannon's core. No time to hesitate. He pulled the trigger. A beam of concentrated energy tore through the warship's defenses, striking the core dead center. The shields flickered, then shattered. Varoth wasted no time. His fighter roared past Alex's, delivering the final shot. The enemy cannon erupted in a fiery explosion, sending debris spiraling into space. The Drakvorn warship convulsed. Systems failed. Its once unstoppable presence flickered like a dying ember. But Alex barely noticed, because the presence was still there, watching, waiting. And as the battlefield fell silent, as the Typharian fleet rallied around them, Alex knew one thing for certain. This war wasn't over. It was only the beginning.